This is called The Long Road to Nowhere. Um, Really, I could call this the African American political strategy, aka The Long Road to Nowhere. Before I get started in respect to what I'm going to be talking about today, I would have to I have to do a few disclaimers up front. And my upfront disclaimers are it would be a dishonest conversation for us to leave out the assistance that African Americans have had by um, white liberals, by the conservative historical abolitionist. It would be inconsistent and dishonest to leave out the assistance of the Jewish community. Um, it would be dishonest to leave out um, some of the assistance that Black people have had from modern day uh, whites, from white women, from white men, from Polish, from Russians. It would be inappropriate for us to leave out all of the people who have participated in a in some way, shape, or form of African Americans getting ahead and gaining their piece of liberty. It would be absolutely inappropriate to leave those people out. And therefore they have my gratitude, they have my acknowledgement. I recognize them. I am not saying that they had no involvement, but what I'm saying is this: the long road to nowhere for the African American is a belief system that the the strategy of of independence, the strategy of equalization, the strategy of we shall overcome, um, can be accomplished by the moral fortitude of your oppressor somehow seeing the error of their historical ways. The approach that many have been given, and I don't say have, because you have been trained in a vacuum of allowing yourselves to be um, victimized, even when you have been offered peace and liberty. And let me explain it in an analogy, as I normally do. Um, Many of you feel that the reason that Great Britain, France, um, then followed next by Mexico and other Spain and these other countries abolished slavery was because somewhere along the line in the 1800s, the European developed some level of moral turpitude that said to them, this is no longer something I can do. This is no longer something um, my Christianity, my Judaism, my Islam, my moral fortitude can actually allow to continue. We must, as a people, cease and desist of the selling of African slaves. And so we feel somehow that the white, and at the time also some of the Jewish community, um, French, the Spanish, the Belgians, and the other participants, the Arabs, all said, you know what, it's a terrible thing what we're doing, and we should stop. We should cease this because of moral reasons. Now, that very well could have been the trickle down effect, and many people, I believe many abolitionists, I believe many people had true moral reasons to say we can no longer allow this in our nation. I believe there's still a very strong moral undercurrent, an active voice of individuals who are moral from the perspective of Judeo-Christian morality There are some people today are moral based on liberal morality, and their morality is, all people should receive all things, and their morality is kind of widened. And then we have this Judeo-Christian morality that specifies what it does. And I'm here to put to that notion to rest, that was just not the case. That slavery did not end on an international level because Britain, France, uh, Spain, Belgium, the Netherlands, all of these various countries, down to the Ottoman Empire, and all these other countries decided somewhere along the line that it was no longer within the moral scope of who they wanted to be as people. That's not what took place. Right? Remember, my agenda here is to explain to you the wrong methodology of the African American, the wrong methodology of all those who come from African American mind worldviews in respect to nation building. And it's saying to you, I'm saying to you that all of you have been handicapped by growing and being raised under the auspices of an African American purview. And I'm going to try to get you out of it. It's counseling, it's conversational, it's perspective based. Please don't take offense at what I'm trying to show you today. So instead of now adopting a false narrative that it might be correct for the minority, that these nations were just, they've reached a moral place where they decided that slavery and the selling of Africans was no longer something they could do as a moral entity. Why don't we go to the point of economics? Let's evaluate economics on a real level. Anytime you need to have a nation, control a nation, and control people, you have to discover the power and the secret of what economics does to the psychology of people on a mass level. Britain realized, and this is the easiest example for the African American, that the colonies was becoming stronger and more wealthy because of slavery. They realized that this usurper, this treaty breaker, this American who had cast off, and I'm going to be here for a minute, so this is going to be educational. We're going to take our time, okay? I'm not going to rush this out in 10 minutes. All right, so if you got to go do something, come back and, press pause and hear the replay. I'm going to be here for a minute, okay? I'm going to take my time with this. But if the American who is gaining all this wealth through slavery, this is the British mind at first, we'll talk about the British first. We need to stop this usurper from getting so strong. And we're going to use our Navy to slow down the transport of this African cargo to the Americas, because this is now becoming a scenario where we are actually allowing them to become more powerful than the British Empire. We have to cease this slave thing now, or they will never be able to be controlled. And so to understand how that works, let's break it down into a way that you and I can evaluate it. The average American today, Black American, makes about $45,000 a year. That's on average, right? That's high, that's low, that's in the middle, right? So, and of course, we have people, of course, who are above that average. We have people who are below that average. But let's just use the average. So now I am a slaver, right? I'm a slave owner, and I have 10 slaves. Me. I have 10 slaves, and I don't have to go to work anymore because I can send my 10 slaves out to work. And my 10 slaves will make an average wage of $45,000 a year. And those 10 slaves will bring 100% of that money home to me because they are slaves. And I will make $450,000 a year. And now all I have to do is give those slaves something to eat. I hand them down old clothes. I let them, get some rest. And then I send them right back to work, right? Now, imagine I don't own 10 slaves, right? I own 100 slaves, right? I don't own 10. 10 slaves is making me 45,000 times 10. Now I have 100 slaves. They're making me 45,000 times 100. That's quite a revenue source. All I have to do is put up some little kibbutzes, some little shacks, keep them happy. They get 1 day off a week, 2 days off a week, and then they go right back to work. I'm making millions of dollars, millions and millions of dollars, but I'm not working. Now that's, America has never been an enemy, and even Britain has never been an enemy of commerce. But the conversation doesn't just stop there. The conversation doesn't just stop at one individual who's discovered that the greatest resource in the world is the human being. He's more valuable than gold. He's more valuable than oil. He is the greatest resource in the world. I don't just own those slaves in the area and the capacity of their physical labor. I also own their inventions. So if I have brilliant slaves, some slaves might be making a little more than $45,000 a year. And I don't just own them, I own their intellectual property. Ooh. So now I'm just not in the category of just e-commerce through labor. I'm in the category of e-commerce through invention, intellectual property. I have an industry of individuals who are basically churning out wealth for me as one individual, right? But let's move on up the scope from economics to politics. I am the governor. Let's change my role now. I'm no longer the slaver who has 100 slaves. I am now the governor of the territory of where that slaver has 100 slaves and other slavers have the same thing. As the governor of that territory, I say to those slavers, we need to go fight our friends over here in the north. I need you guys to come with me. I need you guys to bring your slaves. Those slaves that I have just ordered to come and fight with me as your governor, they don't report to me. They report to you. You have trained 100 slaves. I might have a free army of men, but now you have an army of slaves. You have almost as much power as me if you can lift your embargo of slaves. You got 1,000 slaves. If you have the state of South Dakota of slaves, you are a pretty formidable individual. Now look at Britain. Britain is saying, not only do those Americans have the capacity to out-earn us, they have an army of slaves. It becomes a political nightmare to tell a man who has the autonomy of wealth and indentured soldiers and workers to tell that man what to do. This now breathes into the arrogance of the South, of a Southern slave owner says, how dare you tell me what to do? Me and my fellow plantation owners here, our army is as big as yours, and these slaves will do what I say. They're my slaves. And this is the moronic aspect of it, is that those slaves would do what they were told to do. Those slaves would fight for their master. All right? No, I'm not becoming an apologetic, my friend. Wait for me. Wait for the conversation, my brother. Wait for it. You don't know where I'm going yet. Hold on now. Let's wait for it. So now you have this this national crisis on your head as a British sovereign or as a British prime minister. And you have the mentality that, listen, these Americas are getting too powerful by this thing called slavery. We have to abandon it. We have to stop it. We have to start spreading sentiment that it's morally wrong. We have to say this in Parliament. We have to write it in our editorials and in our newspapers. We have to tell it to our pastors and our priests. We have to take, like all propaganda, coming from the top right down to the bottom. So now what starts as a threat to power and a threat to the empire turns into the moral dilemma of a nation, where everybody up from 5 years old and older saying, "Mommy and Daddy, isn't it terrible what they're doing to the slaves?" Yes, baby, it's terrible what we're doing to these slaves. It's terrible. We should never have done it. No wealth is returned. No apologies are made. But what they're told is that what we should do is we should let these people go free. And this is now where my conversation truly begins with us. Every time the Black American has been told he can go free, he has been told it in the confines of a process. I call the process the long road to nowhere. The process usually begins with a moral leader amongst them that rises up and says, we can't take this anymore. There are some who agree with us. We know that if we run to this person and run to that person, they will help us. And that moral leader rises up and he begins the process of eradicating the tyranny, the marginalization from people. I'm going to get to your Deuteronomy quote in a minute. Give me some time, Joseph. I said I'm working this out. And your moral leaders start the process, and your moral leaders, the first thing they tell you is, listen, keep this secret. Let's work within the confines of what is taking place right now. Let's find allies, and let's build it out. Let's build it out. And what takes place is you start this long road having a conversation about, will you allow us to be free? Will you allow us to be free? Will you allow us to be free? Will you help us be free? We should be free, right? You begin that entire spectrum of conversation. You find small pockets of help, and those small pockets of help turn into individuals that say, we'll help you. We'll go through this process with you. Process and process and process. And my issue with this entire walk is the process. I'll give you an example. When a man is being convicted of a crime, or sorry, I can do it both ways, but he's been accused of a crime, and he goes through the process of being tried. And at the end of the day, he's found to be innocent. And he's in the courthouse. And he was, he was being held for the purposes of his trial. He was being held in jail during the trial. He wasn't freed. He wasn't on bail. He was held. When the judge says, sir, you're acquitted of all your crimes, these crimes against you, you're innocent, you're free to go, they don't release you right away. They don't just take the handcuffs off you and you just walk out the door. What do? They process you out. They process you out. They take you back to jail and they process you, right? Your release is not immediate, which it really should be. It should be, let me go, send me that stuff, bro. Send me that stuff, send it in the mail. No, they don't do that. They take you back and they process you out. They process your property and you sign and you leave. They release you and you leave. There's a process. And we have gotten used to that system of process where this is what it's done for us, is we truly believe that we can hold the morality of systemic racism, the morality of intentional marginalization. We can hold that morality in a position where it says, let us show you how morally wrong this is, what you've done to us. Because you believe that somewhere inside of that decision, is about morality. Somewhere beside the decision, their hearts will be pricked and they'll say, oh man, this is terrible what we've done. But what you have excused is the intentionality. The intentionality of someone saying, no, I did that because I wanted to control you. I wanted to be rich. I wanted to be powerful. And all of the things that that gave me, I'm not giving any of them back. And I realized that it was my situation to have advantages over you, and I used them. If Africa had developed firearms and the capacity to fly and tanks and boats that can shoot cannons and the technology of warfare that the Roman, the Greek, the Assyrian, and all these other individuals who came after developed, the Ottoman, then we would be in a completely different scenario right now. But because one culture, the African culture, sought to build culture, and the other culture sought to build warfare mechanisms and to dominate the surrounding peoples. It had a mindset of takeover. The Hellenistic mindset was that we're going to make the entire world Greek. The Roman mindset was that everywhere is Rome, right? The Ottoman mindset was to conquer an empire across the entire world. If Africa had that mindset and continued in that mindset, they had it maybe in the East, they did not have it as much in the West. The Mali Empire was more of an empire of discovery. They wanted to discover things, they wanted to experience things, they didn't want to necessarily control it and have it under them. But the Eastern and the European mindset was, we want to control it. We want it to be ours. Eastern Africa and the European mindset, we want it to be ours. So the African in America has adopted this principle, which is differentiated from the truest principles of liberty that God gave us initially. And let me give you one out of the book of, and this is where I'm coming with you right now, coming with you right now, Joseph, is out of Joshua chapter 8. So out of Joshua chapter 8, let me show you how God gives his people liberty. And let's speak to how liberty should look like and what liberty has to understand, right? And at no time am I advocating for an attitude that we are still currently in a feudal system of armed takeover in this dispensation of life. We don't need to use armies to do independence. But we need to stop this long road to nowhere process for your independence. Okay, you have to stop using old vernacular that never worked, that has really arrived you nowhere, that has been processing you out of prison forever when you've already been released. Okay, this is my issue. If the African American was anything right now, to be capitulated as one thing, he is a released inmate who is still being processed out and has not acquired the fullness of his freedom, but it still remains the stigma of your incarceration. An incarcerated man, if he was convicted, would be told, you can't vote. So you don't ever leave with as much rights as you came in. And that's a travesty. Because if you were especially held contrary to justice, you should actually leave with more rights. How does a guy like Mandela be put in jail for 20 years and then come out as the president? That's a black nation now, but a different paradigm than you have here in America. He came out of prison for 20 some odd years and came out and became the president. Can that happen in America? Right? So there are things that have been built into your institutionalization that make sure that once you go into this level of incarceration, you come out with less rights. And that has been part of the American system of how you have been conditioned. You go in free man goes in but comes out with less rights. You go in with lack of justice and come out with less access, right? If you've paid your debt to society, why do you come out with less rights? Why does a human being who goes to prison come out not being able to vote? Right? So these things are broken aspects of your liberty because they were never intent to make you free. Think about it. Why do African American men outmeasure the world in incarceration? And when they come out of incarceration, they're told, you are not citizen enough to vote. There's something wrong with that system. Aren't you still paying taxes? Aren't you still a citizen of this nation? Why now do you not have the right to become a president of the nation or a leader of the nation? These things don't exist other places. You have people in Israel who go to prison and they come out of prison, convicted individuals who do their time and come out and can still lead parties. This is a system that has been built different here in America because it is targeting to keep you still processing out. Let me show you what liberty looks like. And the Lord said to Joshua, this is Joshua 8, fear not, neither thou be dismayed. Take all the people of war with thee and arise and go up to Ai. See, I have given into thy hand the king of Ai and his people and his city and his land and his people and his city and his land, right? And thou shalt do to Ai and her king as thou didst unto Jericho and her king. Only the spoil thereof and the cattle thereof shall you take for a prey unto yourselves, and lay an ambush for the city behind it. So God is giving them strategy. And he says, so Joshua arose and all the people of war go up against Ai and Joshua, choose out 30,000 mighty men of valor, and he sent them away by night. And he commanded them, saying, behold, you shall lie in wait against the city, behind even the city. So go behind the city, but not very far from the city, but be ready. And I and all the people that are with me will approach unto the city, and it shall come to pass, when they come out against us, as at the first time, that we will flee from before them. For they will come out after us, till we have drawn from them the city. For they will say, they flee before us at the first. Therefore we will flee before them. And then they shall arise up from the ambush, and seize upon the city, for the Lord hath God given the city into thy hands. Right? And it says, when you shall rise up from the ambush, seize upon the city, for the Lord thy God shall deliver the city into thy hands. Verse 8 said, and it shall be that when you have taken the city, that you shall set the city on fire. According to the commandment of the Lord shall you do it. See, I have commanded you. Joshua said, I'm not waiting for these guys to surrender. I'm going to set a strategic ambush. A strategic ambush. And this is the point of my conversation. Is that when you approach people who have essentially stood against you militarily, because remember AI scenario, AI kicked their butt. They tried to go up against AI after God told them not to go up, and AI kicked their butt. So AI now says, listen, we've already beat these guys before. We know where we stand. We know we're in power. We know we have the ability to deal with them. We're not worried about them if they come up here. So they didn't approach AI and said, hey, AI, listen, we're hoping that you guys will let us pass. We're hoping that we can have an embargo with you. We're hoping we can be part of your nation. They didn't say all that to AI because they know that AI was not going to have that conversation, because historically AI had showed them that we don't see you as an individual who's going to come to us on any level other than an enemy. We remember you tried to attack us before. We remember the fight. So Joshua says, I'm going to use strategy. I'm I'm gonna use a fear strategy. I'm gonna make you feel that I'm weak until you realize that I'm not. You see what I said right there? That was it. I'm gonna make you feel that I'm weak. I'm gonna make you feel that I'm running away from you. But my real intent is to get into the city, to set the place afire, to change the way that everything is in here. And you're going to realize, oh no, we've been outsmarted. The long road to nowhere for the African American has always been, let's wait. Let's see if they'll work with us. Let's see if they will accommodate our wishes. Let's see if they will have mercy upon us. And it's a long road to nowhere. It's a long road. It's a long road to nowhere. We have yet to, though, utilize strategies to say, let's draw them out. Let's draw them out into the open field and have real conversation about the things that have happened historically. Let's make you feel it. Maybe you feel comfortable out here, but let's also have a backup plan. All right? I'm just keeping my words cryptic for a reason. But let's have a backup plan. Let's have a strategy that allows us to win. I truly believe that the strategy for winning in America for the African American is a strategy that says that one day, now please listen to me, that we need a united nation that represents Black people also in America. Now let's talk to you. Let's talk about. Can we talk about the Jew, the Israeli Jew? The Israeli Jew potentially has three nationalities or two, right? You could have a Russian Jew who is both Russian, who is also an Israeli. You can have an American Jew who is American and who is also Israeli. And you could have a Russian American Jew who is Russian, American, and Israeli. And you have these individuals who have positioned themselves where being a Russian is not an affront to being a Jew. Being a Russian is also not an affront to being an American. You can be a Russian with an American citizenship, and you can be a Russian with a Jewish citizenship. You can have all three, actually. And so my approach is that, and I'll speak on two fronts. You have some Africans right now. You have some Black people, African Ethiopians are one thing, and then you have some Black people from America who have seen inside of them their Hebrew background and have returned to Israel, and they have been given a very hard time, but they have white Polish people. They have, I believe, their lawyer is a Russian lawyer. They have Jewish Israelis who their families have intermarried with. They have support. They have love. People appreciate them there. But Israel has yet to bring all of them into the fold of saying, you are an Israeli citizen. Now, my understanding is that their original scenario was that they were looking for sovereignty. And now everybody doesn't agree with this. Some people say, no, we don't want to be independent of Israel. We want to be part of Israel. We want to be a nation under Israel. And we've seen that the Israeli experience for them has not been that completely. So my thought process, using them as an example, is what about the original conversation of sovereignty as a nation that is sovereign, but still in relationship to Israel and still in relationship to America? I'm just using them as an example. And these are my words and my thoughts. These are not necessarily the thoughts of that community, and I don't want to say that I'm speaking for them. I'm just giving out thoughts and using them as an example of what might happen in America. There's nothing wrong with being an independent nation, but still being a citizen of another nation. We have it so many times. We have it in so many places. They feel that you're weak, but you have a strategy. Holly, thank you. But we have it in so many nations. Why can't the obvious inconsistency of the American Union just admit that what they have done to the African American is position him perpetually in a place of processing, her in a place of processing? Why can't they admit that these people deserve to govern themselves? One of the greatest things done in Demona, this the nation I'm talking about, and the settlement, I will refer to you as a nation as long as as long as probably I speak about you, but they formed government. They were given observation status in the AU by Kwame Nkrumah. That's another big conversation about Kwame. But why hasn't the American Black, so-called diaspora African, looked at what took place with that small group of people who went back to Israel and were identified as a potential sovereign nation and given status with Africa? You see, this whole conversation for the African American starts with Africa. The current president of Ghana, we refer to him as Nana. Nana, whether it was his policy or not, whether it was something he came up with or not, declared a year of return in 2019. Told the American, the diaspora African, come, you are part of the family. Many of us, me included, got our passports for that nation. Didn't avoid the fact that I am born in the Caribbean. Didn't avoid the fact that I had citizenry for another colonizer nation. But it allowed me to start saying, I have my roots back in Africa. Africa needs to be on board with an American mentality, American African diaspora mentality, that we need a level of independence. When the Black issues take place on a worldwide scheme, the Black person in America can't run to the United Nations. When Black economic depression takes place in America, you can't run to the World Bank. When Black moral atrocities take place, you can't cry out to the African Union. So who is your voice? Please don't tell me your voice is Parliament, or sorry, is the Senate, is the Congress. Please don't tell me you have a voice in Capitol Hill. Don't tell me you have a voice in the White House. Please don't tell me your governor or your mayor or your chief of police is your voice. Please don't tell me the NAACP, or any of these organizations that Black people have actually founded, and they are Black organizations. I'm not going to fight with you, but please don't tell me they're your voice when those voices are still also being processed out like you. What is wrong with saying, let's get off this long road to nowhere? The same conversations Black people were having in the 60s, they're having them today. I just posted about a young man who was convicted of a crime of breaking and entering. He just broke and entered, and then he ran away. He ran away with his friends, and he was shot. The friend was shot in the back. Right. The story is that the friend approached a police officer with a gun, but somehow, as he approached the police officer with a gun, he was shot in the back. But he was shot in the back, and this young 15-year-old boy was charged with the murder of his friend, even though the boy was shot by a police officer. Felony murder, it's referred to in that particular state. And he was tried as an adult, and he was given 65 years. And he was tried by a judge who tried a white boy, a 28-year-old white boy, who had a criminal record, who stole a car, went into a police chase with the car, crashed the car, and he killed his girlfriend who was in the car. He was given 3 years. But this 15-year-old boy who had no gun, who was just doing a B&E or breaking into a home, who the police shot his other child friend, he was given 65 years for the murder of his friend who was shot by a police officer. And you're telling me you have liberty in America? You're telling me you're really free when your children are being processed for murders that they didn't even commit? When your children are being killed and the person killing them is saying, I didn't shoot him. His friend shot him because his friend was with him when he was committing that B&E. So I'm not culpable anymore. You see, they've stopped the capacity for you to charge police officers with shooting blacks because they say, well, if you were committing a crime, I really didn't shoot you. Your friend that was with you shot you. So I'm really, and you're saying that you have liberty? You're saying that you have the capacity to happiness and the pursuit of happiness in this nation like this? It's a great nation. Don't get me wrong. It's a great nation. America is a great nation. But it's not your nation until you actually have a true seat at the table of governance where you can really pick up the phone and call another world leader and say, hey, this is not right. What's going on? Give your boy a call in the White House. Can't the Palestinian that the black person in America so identifies with, doesn't he have a president that can pick up the phone and call world leaders? He sure does. Why are you so unrepresented? The Prime Minister of Trinidad can pick up the phone and call somebody. The leader of St. Vincent, the leader of Haiti can pick up the phone and call another world leader. Taiwan can do it. The black man in America, who represents you? Uncle Joe is speaking for you? Who's speaking for you? America is still a good nation. Not going to say, listen, I said it before. Black people in America. There's no other nation in the world where you have the capacity to do the things that you're doing here. Let's just be honest. You have a strong dollar. You have the capacity to run your businesses. I've been through some of the cities of America all my life. There's nothing like you. You've created cultures all over the world. Rap, blues, rock and roll. The list goes on. You've made athletics, statesmanship, invention. You've done everything. There's nothing you haven't done under the flag of America. There's nothing you haven't accomplished under this flag of America, black people. You've done more individually than the collective contribution of blacks everywhere in the world. You did it right here in America. Can't lie. We can't lie on you. We've had greatness all over the place. We've had Kwame Nkrumahs. We've had great people out of Trinidad and great people out of Jamaica. We have great people out of Africa and we've had great black people all over the world. We're not going to say we did not. England, everywhere. But what you've done here trumps all of them. There's no comparison. So we're not going to sit here and pretend like, we need to treat you like Darfur or treat you like, some situation where your bellies are swelling and flies are flying out of your mouth and you're not dying on the streets like that, but you're still dying. You're still dying. And the reason I think I have a mind a little different is because I've never had a moment, I've never had a second where I didn't see black people in power coming from the Caribbean. Never had a moment where I didn't see black people running political parties. Never had an iota of a glance. I've never seen black communities of wealth and prosperity. I've seen it all. That was my beginning. So now I step into this country and I see greatness in you. And I see evil sitting on every wall, stopping you from being who you're supposed to be. And I ask the question again, why the long road to nowhere? Why not the conversation of self-governance? Because when black people in America say self-governance, you all together hold your breath and say, oh no, they're going to kill us. Oh no, they think we're going to overthrow the government. Oh no, don't talk like that. Don't talk like that. When black people who are in Israel say the same thing. Maybe some of them, I don't know. Maybe some of them say, don't say that. Don't talk like that. They're going to think we're here to overthrow the place. But they've done it. They've done the same thing. They've done it. They have come from other places and they have built nations while they still had allegiance to other places. They came to America, spoke the language that they came from, kept their culture. Nobody ever said they come to overthrow the government. Why are you so afraid of yourself? Because you've been trained to think, no, if we act out, if we don't assimilate, they're going to kill us. Think like Joshua. Resistance is strong against any form of independence displayed by us. Thank you, Satro. So-called African Americans seen as property, still to this day, unworthy of reparations, feared for our own dominant genetics. Yes, what a powerful statement. What a powerful statement. You guys should go and read that. Whew. Resistance is strong against any forms of independence displayed by us, so-called African Americans, seen as property still to this day, unworthy of reparations, feared for our own dominant genetics. And it's not just your genetics, it's your intellect. It's your intellect. It's your ingenuity. It's your ability to take the least and make it the most. And you got to stop being afraid of people being afraid. If you're afraid, if I'm afraid that you're going to be afraid, I don't want to be intrusive. I don't want to make you fearful. No, we got to stop that, because we didn't care. Listen, it would be crazy for the black person in America to think we don't need the white man. We don't need the Latino. It would be crazy for us to think we don't need the Asian. We don't need the brown person. It'd be crazy for us to start dissecting and say we can throw those ones out and throw those ones away. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that as a nation of people, there's no one who can sit here. There's no one group of people that can sit here and say, you have no right to say you built this nation. There's no one who can look at the black man in America, the black woman in America, and say, you don't have a right to say, you have no right to say you built this nation. The Chinese came as an immigrant, came here as an immigrant. The Jew came here as an immigrant, right? They definitely helped build this nation, but you didn't come here as an immigrant. You were, and this concept of calling you involuntary migrants today, reject it, right? Reject it. There's some things that sometimes that your history has allowed that should be rejected. Some of the first conversations that not Nelson Mandela, but that Martin Luther King and Garvey should have had is not a Back to Africa movement. It's a New Africa movement, because this is New Africa. The African wants to come here, and you're trying to go back to Africa. And I have nothing wrong with you going back to Africa. I think you should definitely visit Africa like the Muslim visits Mecca. But when the Muslim goes to Mecca, what does he do after he prays? He goes home. Goes to wherever he built his world, wherever he built his life. He doesn't live in Mecca. Africa is our Mecca. We should go to her. We should invest in her. We should build businesses in her, right? And then we should come back to New Africa, because the resources of New Africa will bless Africa. We have too much Bible on it. The resources of Egypt are what Joseph used to bless his brothers and his father, right? Goshen was their reward, but it changed. Why did it change? Why did Goshen, the place that the Jews, the Israelites rather, had in Egypt, change? It changed because it says, and a Pharaoh who did not know Joseph, because governance was never established independent of Egypt. They never said, you Goshenites, you individuals from Jacob, we will give you statesmanship. We will give you the right, to govern. You see, when generations pass and the leaders that you had who made inroads into making sure that you were inclusive, when those leaders die, a new leader will rise up who never heard of your leader and will say, who are these people and why are they there? What gives them the right to be there? How come they're there? Who was their leader? I don't remember him. No, 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 no. You can't afford for that. Treaties are broken. A treaty is nothing. It's broken. It gets destroyed. It gets destroyed. It gets thrown away. And they say, no, 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 renegotiate. Eminent domain. We need that land now. I'm sorry, you people were here, but we need that land now. What happens in Israel? They say, they tell the Palestinians, we need that land now, right? That's what's happening in some places. That's what these people are fighting about, right? So it'll happen here too. It happened to the Indian, happened to the native, they call them now. So we need to, what keeps people honest is nations. Honestly, it's what keeps people honest. Nationhood keeps people honest. Once you have a sovereign nation, you can now do proper business with your neighbors. You can do proper business with your nation, with your neighbors. If Israel is a place that I believe can be the greatest example of what the world could be if Israel gets it right now, what's happening right now in Israel. If Israel gets it right, and they get it right with these Hebrews that are there, they get it right with them. They have a powerful conversation of what the new world would look like. Is these Hebrews in Israel right now, these Hebrews that came out of America now have settled themselves for 50 years in Israel. They are the most important precedent that the Black community in Africa has. And many of you don't understand them, and I've been getting educated day and day and day. I have mentors, Prince Asiel and Azriel, and all the others who talk to me and they give me their perspective, and I put it into the bank, and then it spits out like this. And they give me more, and they give me more, and they give me more, and I think about it, and I talk to them, and I listen, and I hear it, and I see what they're showing me. And I talk to other people, Christina King and Shiloh and all these other people, and I say, okay, let me see what is this? Dimona and the Hebrews that are outside even of Dimona, and these Hebrews in Israel, these diaspora Blacks who came from America and went back 50 years ago, more than 50 years ago, to Israel and set up this community of communities. If Israel gets it right with them, we have an example. And we have two ways to go. One way is they become part of Israel, like the African Americans trying to become part of America. And then automatically bias and prejudice just disappears. It just goes away, right? Everybody says kumbaya. They all become family. They hold hands. They intermarry, and they just become part of Israel, right? That's a wonderful story. It could happen. Absolutely, it could happen. Or they become a territory, an independent territory, like Puerto Rico. A Guam, although Guam can't vote, Puerto Ricans can't vote, but they become a nation state that is a partner, that has an independent passport, but your passport is recognized, your privileges are recognized because you have a border. If you start calling Puerto Rico the 52nd, 51st state, right? You start saying Puerto Rico is now a state. It changes America. Puerto Rico is Puerto Rico. We know the relationship, right? You leaving America and going to Puerto Rico, it's so symbiotic now. It's like you're not even leaving the nation to some extent. It is and it isn't. Because they built it like that, right? But we know very well, like let's use Mexico. Mexico is its own nation, but there's a NAFTA agreement. And Mexico had its battles and its difficulties and all these kind of things. And I'm not saying to be Mexico, but maybe they could be Puerto Rico. I don't know. I just know that the long road to nowhere leads nowhere. A process that never ends is a no. Can I say that again? A process that never ends is a no. You've been released from jail. When do I get to leave? Oh, you just got to fill out a few more forms. Just wait for us. We'll be right there. Are you still incarcerated? Can you walk out the door? No, the door's closed. Got to wait to fill out the form. You know what? We have to print more of the forms. We apologize. The form's not printed. Give us a few more minutes. You're being processed. You're being processed. You know what? Your first black president was a process. You're being processed. Fine. But then you get another president who comes after and dismantles everything that he did. You have a person who, like DeSantis, sitting there saying, hey, I'm next. And let me tell you something. I think DeSantis is more dangerous than Donald. I think he's one of the most dangerous men to black people since J. Edgar Hoover. You hear what I said? DeSantis is more dangerous to black people than J. Edgar Hoover. And you're going to let that guy sit in the position of the White House and say, we're just going to hope for the best. Come on, man. Come on. Timothy Davis, shalom to you. Many Africans even refer to us as the impossibles. We have overcome the worst. We are an inspiration to humanity. The whole world follows our trends and cultures today. Amen, Sergio. We are Joseph in this hell, a forgotten people, God's people. I don't think you're forgotten, but you're definitely Joseph. Our struggle is the only reason that we can come here now. I'm telling you, the time of Gentiles is almost over, running over the land that's not theirs, they're taking second side. Let me tell you something. You got to read all those scriptures again, Jewel Niles. They are brilliant. You belong there. After all, your ancestors built America. Yeah. The Hebrew in Africa should have one unanimous voice from Black America. And it should be what Rila Hagley said. You are brilliant and you deserve to be there. It is your land. That is the one resounding, solitary shout. And any mental slave that says the opposite is defeating their own liberty. Because when you tell a people who identify themselves with the land that they are not, that's not their home, and then you're telling them to come back here and telling them that this is their home, something went wrong. Something went wrong. Okay? Something went wrong in your thinking. Something went wrong with your mentality. These folks have identified themselves with the land, with the religion of the land, with the history of the land. And you're telling them they don't have a right? Doesn't the African American identify himself with this land? Purchased in blood? The history of this land? Ancestors built it? The religion of this land? Come on. The resounding unified voice of the African American to the Mona and the Hebrew, the Black Hebrew in in Africa, in Israel, should be, you're brilliant. You deserve to be there. It is your land. Period. There shouldn't be any other voice. The second conversation should be, when you are there, how will you establish yourself differently than what has taken place in America? Do I have to say it over and over and over and over again? You're the last slave colony to gain independence. You're the last slave colony to gain independence. The American black person is the last slave colony to gain independence. Why do you think the whole concept of the Commonwealth existed? I'm not talking about the Commonwealth from Ephesians 2. I'm talking about the Commonwealth nations. Because Britain said, okay, you want independence. They said, yeah, we don't want you to be over us like that no more. But we realize we still need your help. So we want a relationship, we want a friendship that is common. We want the Commonwealth of the British Empire to be part of our wealth too. We don't want to want you just to pull the rug out from under us and leave us isolated here, because most of what you have, we gave it to you. So we want a sharing process, right? It requires that. The African America should have a commonwealth with America, a commonwealth with America, an allyship that we make a decision. You can't conscript us, but we can say, hey, it's in our best interest to help you fight, to help you deal with technology, to help you share information. This is what the world is becoming. If we require to be for anything on this planet, I mean, I'm not really a believer of terrestrial life like that. But if it happens to show up and fool us all, and it comes aggressive, that's maybe a time for that type of conversation. But we've come too far for that now. It comes a time when you stop beating your children and say, hey, when I was back in the 60s, we used to spank y'all. But now I realize that we need to maybe talk to you. A couple of them still need whooping now, don't get me wrong. But I think we're there now. I think we're really there, and this isn't for everybody. No great movement has everybody thinking at the beginning. It's a trickle down. So we need some thinkers to be up here saying, okay, how does nationhood look like for us? Who would run it? And how does it start? Is capitalism and democracy it? I don't know. It can't be at the beginning. You can be democratic about what? Who are you voting? Who's voting? Who are your citizens? Has to be some level of oligarchy at the beginning, where a small group say, we're representing this movement, the rest come behind us, and then they have to transfer power to the masses, maybe, if that's possible. So what I'm trying to get to you is that we need to abandon African American historical politics, the long road to nowhere. It has never worked for you. It has never worked for you. It has never worked for you. And you're not at the time or the season where you can be Haiti or you have a new American Revolution, and you don't have to. This is the wonderful thing about this world now. The Me Too movement gave you the secrets of changing a world behind the veil of anonymity. You literally can say no, that we don't believe in this anymore. We don't believe in this union. We don't believe in this relationship, right? My God, how many men and women have been left by a person who says, I love you, but I don't believe in this relationship. It needs to change. Yeah, one side is crying, please return to the relationship. I want you to be in the relationship. The other side says, no. This historical relationship isn't working for me. We need something different. I love you, but I can't be in this, like this. No, I can't be this. It has to be different. You treated me too badly. I didn't like how you're treating me. I didn't feel good. I can't think of myself going back into it. We need something else. This is where you are. This is where America is, right? This is where you are, right? You can't go back into these old mentalities, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s. They're never coming back. You have something else now. You have the capacity to formulate new partnerships. The new millionaires, the new billionaires are not going to be a tech company. It's going to be people sitting here talking to you. The new influencers, not going to be some girl on TikTok dancing, or a bunch of people sitting on Instagram, having a conversation about economic empowerment. That stuff is done. What's new, what's now? People talking about building nations, building a business. Wonderful. You want a business? You want to be a business owner? Great. I want to be a nation builder. I want to be a nation builder. I want to be a nation builder. Back in the day, it was impossible for people to think, oh my gosh, you mean we can start a country and print our own money? We can print our own passports? Come on. That's where you are right now, especially the Hebrews in Israel. The Hebrews in Israel, that's where you are right now. And I'm not speaking out of turn. None of them told me to say this. I'm talking of myself. You either give them what they want or face the consequences of what they can become. Independent nation. In a place pretty small, like it's a pretty small place to have a bunch of nations. You got the Palestinians, you got the Israelis, and you want another nation in there? You give them what they want, or you let them be a nation. And the same thing goes for, if it can happen in Israel, it can happen in America. You've been sitting under the auspices of a two-party system that has not served you on any side of that coin. But you still carry water to it. You still try to line up behind it as best as you can, say, we're in the right, we're on the left, and then some people say, oh, we're centrist, we're kind of here, we're kind of there, and then there's all these little minority There must be a conversation that is bigger than just being processed continually. That's all I want to say today. That's all I want to relay to you. I just want to plant the seed. The new American Revolution is a revolution of diplomacy, is a sit-down conversation of factions reminding the history, showing the reality, and speaking to the future. The new conversation is we will not go any further on this line, on this road that leads to nowhere. That should be the new conversation, my friends. Africa must be the first people you call. Once the African Union identifies your group of nation builders as an independent observer of what is taking place in Africa and recognizes your commitment to building out a synergy and embargo relationship with Africa, and then you speak to America and you say, hey, listen, we're not trying to take anything that doesn't already belong to us, but we feel that we need a level of independence. Haven't you given your independent governorship to the Native American? You know, a lot of them that you thought were Native Americans were us. That's right. The Seminoles and some of these other big tribes, the Cherokee, that was us. That was just us. You didn't realize it was us, but it was us. We were up in there. That was us. Some of them were us. Some of y'all mistake them for us, but they were us. So, but didn't you give them independence? Are they trying to take over the nation? Are they running around, trying to make embargoes with foreign powers that hate you? We're not going to do that. It's not to our benefit, right? The new United States of Africa doesn't have a relationship with Iran, right? Why? Well, it doesn't need one. Has a relationship with the people that you have a relationship with. Let's start there. You got a relationship with Israel, like you got a relationship with Israel. And we're going to make an embargo between you and us to allow us to run this land that you have so nicely forced us to build for you. That's all I have to say. God bless you. I don't know what took place with my comment section, and I'm hoping I'm still broadcasting and hoping you're still seeing it, but I can't see your comments. But until we speak again, until we meet again, share this, become a part of the conversation. This is the new ShilohInstitute.org, the ShilohInstitute.org, and it's Del K. Brereton. I'm speaking at this point. I'm just speaking my mind. Okay, please don't assign this to anyone else and say this is what Shiloh represents. This is what so and so represents. This is just me. And as we unleash and release Shiloh to you and show you what it is and what it represents and who we represent, all of our strategies will be made known. It's nothing really that serious that you should be afraid of. We are going to have conversations with people who know that there's nothing to fear, but there's everything to gain. We're going to make sure that the Black community is put in its right place at the head and not the tail. And we're going to make sure that we have strategic partnerships with people, with other cultures, with bodies of government, with other nations, to make sure that we are going somewhere. Okay? God bless you. This is Del K. Brereton. I'll be back in touch with you later. If you have issues with anything that I've said, please just ask the questions. Give me your critical opinions. I really appreciate all the people that share space on this channel. Earth, Wind, Fire, Spirit. Come on, we're putting something together, and we're going to have a meeting coming up very soon. I'm heading out to Chicago for the 23rd. Some of y'all want to meet me there, let me know. Heading out to Chicago for the 23rd. And we should have a good old time. I have an active date. My speaking dates are open. If you do want me to speak anywhere, speak or preach, please contact me here, delkbrereton@gmail.com, and we can talk soon. All right, bless you. So click on the beacons, follow me on social media, become a member, become a subscriber. This channel is for you. This channel is for us. This channel is for everybody. God bless you.